My name is Henzelene, and I'm managing partner of the council services here on behalf of Unlock Blockchain today with Stefan, who's the CEO of M2. So,
Henzi, pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Stefan, for coming. So, for the audience, I mean, M2 is a very well-known name now, but if you could just give us a little bit of background about what it is and how people can actually access it.
Okay, sure.
Because it's like a user base, right? So please.
Of course. So M2 is a regulated crypto exchange and investment platform. We are based out of Abu Dhabi in the ADGM. Mm-hmm. Also have crypto licenses in various other jurisdictions to serve our international customers and to cover all the products and services we like to offer. One of the offerings, of course, as a key part of the proposition is anything around buying, selling, and trading crypto, both spot, futures, OTC, and margin trading. As well as the earn side. So once you already have assets and you want to earn a yield on that, we have what we call earn plans. So for instance, if you have a Bitcoin, you can put that on an earn plan. You can earn up to 10.5% yield on the Bitcoin. Same on Ethereum, similar on USDT. So that's really one of our sweet spots of what we do.
That's phenomenal. So you guys are one of the first companies that got an MFT license with ADGM, right?
Yes.
And that essentially covers all of these different aspects.
It doesn't just, let me just, because
my
regulator will be strict with me if I don't
100%,
clarify that. So that license itself is the trading, the exchange part, the MTF, Multilateral Trading Facility.
Sure.
We also have a custodian license, that's a separate license, so we allow to store customers, assets on behalf of our customers. That's what's covered in that license. Additional products, we have additional licenses for.
Right, so here's a question, right? Because when you have additional licenses all over, you have to integrate them. So the sticking point becomes, okay, the UAE says that they regulate everything within the UAE. And then sometimes like people will include licenses from overseas, but technically from within the UAE you need to have the licenses to operate within the UAE. So is it that you've received almost like waivers or like how are you integrating everything is what I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah, so part of it is a technical response, the other one is the legal side of it. So from a technical perspective, we try to offer that on one app to make it seamless and easy to use for a customer. At the end of the day, many customers, especially those new to crypto, like the convenience, the safety, and the transparency around that. That's really important. So what we try to make sure is whenever services are being offered from different jurisdictions or from different licenses, we need to make that clear to our customers. So if some of the offering is in ADGM, something else is from somewhere else, we need to make that transparent and visible to the user so he knows what he's interacting with.
Got you. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so there's so much interest about people wanting to set up in the UAE, whether that's with one of the four regulators, well, it has to be. But a lot of people are also put off by what they're seeing in terms of confusion, right? Because it's very multifaceted itself, just like your license. So how has your experience been in getting regulated within the UAE or with ADGM?
Yeah, so look, when we started VARA as the main alternative, I think, between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, was still a bit younger. Still in the process of being finalized and written. So there was a bit more of a question mark and uncertainty around it, whereas ADGM is the oldest written crypto regulation in the world, and very well established, where we trusted the fact that we could get banking rails, which is one of the biggest challenges in crypto. So we went from the get-go, from the start, went with the Abu Dhabi license. And that's been a relatively straightforward process. We deal with one regulator and we apply that same to the rest of the country, which is, I think, still something that's being worked out between the various regulators, and customers new or service providers new to the region do get confused by it. I trust that they keep working it out amongst each other.
Of course. So yeah, exactly, because we have that parallel legal system, and then we have the authority in Dubai, and then the one in Dubai, and then we have another Emirate authority. So yeah, it can be quite confusing. Are you guys interacting with any of the regulators to provide any kind of technical know-how about how the industry is actually working and the feedback or the struggles that you're seeing from customers or any of that? Of
course, yeah. So I mean, again, for us, our counterpart, our regulator is the ADGM. Of course. We have, I'd say, at least 3-4 phone calls a week with them on various topics on our own supervision or regulation, consultations about new topics. For instance, right now the travel rule is one of the hottest questions in terms of how to apply that, what the scope is, what the reach is. That's one of the topics. It's also on staking. That's another interesting topic. So whatever else comes up and what the regulator's working on, they tend to talk to the constituents, and we give them feedback on and our opinion on what we think.
That's very, very good. And it's exactly like you were saying, like you guys are having so many phone calls because the regulatory environment here is also evolving all the time, especially in this space. So it's good that you guys are interacting with the regulator. How are you guys applying or making sure you comply on an ongoing basis with the regulatory environment when there are things always changing?
Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately that's our compliance team. We have one of the biggest departments
team, right?
in the company is the team. Plus, it's also the constant interaction, dialogue with the regulator. So if something changes, of course, that doesn't happen overnight. We still get a heads up. We still got a discussion with them on how to comply, how to do it technically, how from a UI perspective. So that's, that's usually not a surprise. It's an ongoing effort, and something we're happy to do. But it's just something that has to be
I know what
managed.
you mean.
Yeah.
No, for us as well, like our compliance is very heavy, and it annoys me so much sometimes, but it has to be done, right? You don't want to mess around with the regulators.
No.
So from one topic to the other, you have taken M2 and you've put it on a rocket ship. Like you've accelerated its growth substantially over the last 2 months or more. Can you give any pointers to the wider audience? It's like a mentor on how they can do the same thing.
How to grow. Yeah, look, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I'm blessed with a very good marketing and growth team who obviously are responsible for that. And again, it comes down to hard work and an effort to make sure we have a consistent message that goes out there. We broadcast on many channels. We visit a lot of the shows. And that's fortunately easy to do because there's always a different show almost on a daily basis here, or not show, an exhibition or trade show here in the UAE. So look, it's constant hard work. There's no golden bullet to it. It's just put in the effort, be smart about it, so otherwise it gets too expensive. And that's really all there is to it.
Very good. No, I like what you said about having, it's all like you gave credit to the team because we're not one-man armies, right? And we can only achieve so much by ourselves. So having a wider team behind you, but also with your guidance. So let me just, for the listeners, I'm sure they're as interested as I am because before you joined M2, we knew each other. And so when did you actually get into the virtual asset space? And how?
Yeah, so my background was in TradFi, but I was always in the space of digital transformations. I was a consultant with BCG, then Oliver Wyman, then a service provider with IBM, always in the space of advising TradFi or fintechs on digital transformation, always with the focus of how to use technology to get better products and services to the customers. The first direct interaction with blockchain was, I think, 2017. There was actually a CBDC project between Saudi and the UAE. It's called Project Arbor. So it was a first global cross-country CBDC.
In 2017?
That may have been 2018.
Oh wow, but still.
It's a while back, yeah. So that was the first one. And then especially in the blockchain side, there's a lot of use cases around trade, finance, and other things that solves pretty challenging problems in the financial world. And obviously, once you start reading up on crypto, it's what happened to me is what happens to everybody. You fall into the rabbit hole, never come out. I finally did the jump to do this for a living. I think 2021 when I joined Kraken. Right. So it's full-time crypto as opposed to just blockchain. Was with Kraken in the region here for a while, and then had the opportunity to launch M2.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, I love the space, right? And that's like when you're in it, it's so interesting. But that's why I like the regulations that are coming out as well, because it's really giving people guidance on what's okay and what's not okay. Because the space itself has so much potential, but then you always have the bad apples, right? That yes. Kind of give it a bad name. And with like so much ambiguity or whatever in the space. Unfortunately allows for more of that. So with the regulation, we're going to be able to create more credibility, more legitimacy, more companies like M2 that are actually doing things by the book and are fully compliant. So yeah.
Yeah, fully agreed. I think the challenge we had in recent years was not so much good regulation, bad regulation, was no regulation or unclear regulation, right? And it's just as you said, with the regulation being there's clear rules. You may or may not like the rules, but at least there is rules on what's allowed, what's not allowed, and how to do it and how not to do it. And that obviously is meant to protect investors, but it also protects service providers. And we see what happens if that's not in place in the US, where there's just regulation by enforcement.
Exactly.
But with the rules in place now, it opens up the space to wider set of users, potentially mass adoption, institutional customers who can now put funds into it because it's regulated, which they couldn't do when it was not regulated. So I think it's a precondition for wider rollout, wider adoption, and we happily embracing it. It's the foundation of everything we do is make sure it's compliant.
And that's wonderful, and I love that you guys have been through the process and you're there, because it just gives other people hope, right? that they can set up not the same thing, but I'm sure it took months and months, if not a year.
2 years.
Right? 2 years, yeah, exactly. But it just like people know at least it's doable, or it's been done. So one more question: whatever happened with that CBDC? Why did it? It just fell through. The regulations weren't in place for it as at that time.
No, I mean it was a project for the two central banks to work together, SAMA and CBUAE, to see both from a technical perspective, also from a let's say from an impact on monetary policy aspect as to what can be done, what are the design elements. It was an early stage pilot to work it out on, and it was on a wholesale level. So it was not for end customers. It was between banks, central banks, and banks. I think they took the learnings from back then on board and are still, like most countries around the world, thinking about or deciding about if they want to have a CBDC, how to design it, because there's a lot of very, very different designs for CBDCs.
Yes.
And I think that's what the governments are currently working on.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. Okay, so one more question on my end. Where do you see the industry going? And people that are not necessarily in it yet, why should they get in it?
Yeah, look, I mean, the industry is still fairly young. So I think what we see now, it's growing a lot. We see prices developing very positively. We see new use cases. My hope is, of course, that crypto overall makes more impact also outside of the pure investment space. So far, the predominant use case has been a speculative investment instrument. We see more and more use cases, especially on stablecoins, for actual payments, cross-border payments, settlement, and of course the hope is there's more and more use cases in the real world rather than just being a fun or speculative instrument.
Absolutely, I could not agree with you more. There's so much potential there. We need to direct it in the right direction, right?
Indeed.
Not us, but us as like
the community together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stefan, thank you so much for your time. It was
Thank you,
invigorating to speak with you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.